Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to this Planetside 2 developer stream. My name is Totalbiscuit, and joining me is the one and only Matt Higbee, creative director of the game.
Hey everybody.
And we're having some fun times once again as my microphone decides it really wants to be at a different level. So I may have to adjust this as we go along. Windows is currently not cooperating. That's always fun. Loving that, but... Welcome, Matt. We're going to be having a look at the game in its current form, hopefully answering some questions. We do have a look at the brand new certification system, if I recall correctly.
Yeah, that's right. We can jump into the certification screen really quick.
Let's do it.
We've got Kevin Moyer here, who's one of our game designers, who's going through and actually running this demo while I'm chatting with you. So yeah, here's our certification screen. Hop into Infiltrator real quick. You can see here that the Infiltrator class itself has a ton of different specs, not only for different rifles that it has access to, and you'll have access to far more rifles than this, but also for different types of class specs, like if I want to have a more melee focus, gonna cloak, sneak behind you and stab you to death type spec, or a more sniping focused spec, or a more surveillance focused spec. All those sort of things have their own cert trees and all can be unlocked and you basically customize to your heart's content. So if you decide you want to be the guy who is all about sniping, then there's a tremendous number of customizations just for that in the cert tree and also with different rifles that you're able to unlock.
Okay, so how quickly are you actually getting these certification points?
So certification points are earned in two different ways. You'll earn them over time, whether you're online or offline, as sort of a way to kind of keep up with your friends who have more gaming time than you, but they're also earned actively while you're online killing guys. So my expectation is that a cert point will probably be about 10 minutes worth of time, and these cert points will range anywhere from being one cert to unlock something to being hundreds of certs to unlock anything. So a lot of the values that are in here are temporary right now, and a lot of the unlock rules that are set up are temporary right now. But that just gives you an idea of the vast amount of differentiation that's available, even within just one class in the game.
Yeah, that's fairly significant, honestly. Now, back in Planetside 1, players may remember, and those that don't, I'll explain how it used to work. Back in Planetside 1, you got certification points with every battle rank that you gained. You could then spend certification points to get a certification into a weapon type or into a vehicle type. Sometimes you get more than one vehicle, sometimes it was just a specific weapon or armor piece. And you could then reset those certifications on a fairly regular basis. Obviously, you couldn't do it all the time because they wanted you to specialize to some degree, but you could reset them quite often. So, with this system, just how different is that? Are you expecting people to have to stay with the choices that they've made, or will they be able to recertify?
Well, you'll never have to recertify is one of the things. There's no limit to the number of cert points you're able to get. So you'll be able to eventually unlock every different cert that exists in the game.
Okay.
So there's really no reason to have a reset necessarily, but you'll be stuck with the choices that you make. Yeah. But you wouldn't have to do a reset just so that you had access to something else. You would be able to cert into that as much as you want. You can see here, Kevin's going through and actually unlocking some certifications. And on some of these trees, when he unlocks a certain number of points spent into a specific tree, then it unlocks different cert lines that he can have access to. Another cool thing to note is the certs that you earn on any different role. If you go and earn a bunch of cert points flying a mosquito, you could use those to buy things for your medic too. There's nothing that locks you into only spending cert points on the thing that you earn the cert points on.
Okay, and when it comes to the way that certification points are earned, you're saying you're expecting people to get about one cert point every 10 minutes, give or take, by just performing actions in the game. So one assumes this includes things like kills, base captures. What other examples are there?
Oh, healing people, reviving people, anything that you would expect to see experience gain for, you'll also be gaining cert points for. So even earning achievements and things like that could eventually be filtered into earning cert points.
Okay, well, I would like to just put out the idea here then that it seems like this system could be exploited via the practice of boosting. Now, those of you who played Call of Duty will be aware of what boosting was. It was essentially a way of exploiting the game to rapidly gain ranks and experience by doing repetitive actions with a couple of friends, usually in the corner of a map and so on and so forth. How exactly do you intend to avoid that happening?
So one of the things that, and that's absolutely a concern, grabbing two people on two different empires and having them capture a point back and forth to each other all the time. back and forth.
Mm-hmm.
One of the ways that we really avoid some of those problems is we're going to have a full-time 24/7 customer service in the game, running around and finding those kind of guys who are exploiting and being able to ban them.
Okay.
You can essentially think of it as playing on an FPS server where there's always an admin available.
Right, so you're actively looking out for boosters and hackers and so on and so forth.
Right, absolutely. And we do that through not only technical back-end means of seeing whether somebody's repeating an action that they shouldn't be repeating every 10 seconds, like capturing an equipment terminal or a capture node or something like that that gives you experience for capturing, shouldn't be happening every 5 seconds in normal play. So if someone's doing that a lot, it'll sort of start to build up their cheater rating on the back end.
Okay.
And then customer service will be quickly dispatched to sort of Robocop them, you know?
Yeah, it was actually an interesting point that you guys made when I was over there for the tour. The way that you've actually been developing systems to deal with these kind of problems, particularly in games like Free Realms, for instance. It was mentioned that since obviously that's a kid-friendly game, you've got to be very careful with your customer service there and the systems that you've got in the back end. So I assume you're using some kind of similar advanced systems in Planetside.
Right, absolutely right. Yeah, I mean, all of our games are online games, so we always have a petition system, the ability for you to talk directly to a CS staff, and even though our games are free to play, that's no different. We still have an entire customer service department that's dedicated to being able to solve problems within this game, and a lot of stuff that we learned from Free Realms about quickly being able to respond to issues definitely carries through to this too.
That's fair enough. Now, with these various unlocks for this particular weapon, every single one of these unlocks is actually governed by certs, is that correct?
That is correct. There'll be some that you get by default on a weapon, and then others that you unlock via certs.
Okay. So how does that all tie into the store system? Obviously, I realize that the store is currently in a state of flux and it's not really ready to be shown, but how does that tie in with microtransactions?
So any weapon within our game, you're going to be able to unlock via earning resources in the game. The way you earn resources is by running around, capturing regions. Actually, Kevmo, can you open up the map really quick? So as a player in this game, you're going to run around and form up groups and capture these different regions within the map. What we're looking at here on Indar is a 64 square kilometer map that has about 80 different capture points on it. Each one of these capture points, once you own it, gives you resources. Passively, your empire basically gives you a dividend based on the territory that it controls.
Okay.
You also will earn resources more actively by fighting in these regions. So one of our currency types in here, the one that Kevmo was just mousing over actually, is called Araxium. And Araxium can be used to buy any different kind of weapon in the game. All of our weapons are balanced so that they're not necessarily stronger than the others, but they're different. So a weapon might fire a little bit faster and do a little bit less damage, or have a little bit less kick, and be more accurate at range, but the headshot damage is lower on it, those sort of things. So lots of different trade-offs to make them balance against one another. So those items you can unlock via Araxium that you earn from playing this territory conquest gameplay, or you can buy them with station cash in the store.
Okay. So when it comes to earning certification points and experience, is there a way to boost that using cash? Will you be able to buy those things too?
You won't be able to buy them directly, but we will sell accelerators, similar to what League of Legends does with an IP booster, for instance, that you could buy that lasts 7 days, and it gets you a 50% increase on the IP that you earn in-game.
Fair enough. Now, you explained the idea of the resource system and the Empire paying you a dividend of everything that's captured. So, am I to understand that you have a personal resource cache that you then expend on things like spawning vehicles and so forth?
Yep, absolutely right. And you can see here in the bottom left corner of this screen that Kevbo's looking at, he's looking at the equipment terminal, which is used for you to refresh your equipment, change classes, things like that. You can see here that he can see his current resource pools. The reason you can see them on this screen is because things like grenades and health kits that are consumable, we use those resources up too. So yeah, you have your own personal resource pool that gets replenished based on both your own personal actions as well as based on your current empire's conquest, how much territory they control, and what type of resources those territories yield.
Okay, so we just saw on the screen right there the resupply of grenades costing 20 of whatever that was, a polymer or an alloy or something along those lines. So
that's
you
right.
Just threw away a bunch of money. Congratulations.
Yeah, those weren't very effective use of resources, Kevmo.
Not exactly. Now this is
Don't stand on it.
yeah. Let's not do that. It sounds like a fairly terrible idea. But
Yeah.
it's only consumables that take this stuff, aside from vehicles. So if I were to change my class around, for instance, does that take any kind of resource cost?
No, absolutely not. And it doesn't cost resources for you to equip weapons that you've unlocked or attachments that you've unlocked for those weapons. Once you've earned them, you've earned them. Vehicles are slightly different because vehicles are almost like a consumable. You use it for a little while and then it blows up and you can jump out of it. So they do have a resource cost associated with them.
Okay, as we switch over to the max suit right there, very, very nice indeed.
Yeah, I should say that the one exception to what I said could potentially be the max suit, which may incur a resource cost with it, but the other classes won't.
Yeah, in Planetside 1, for a comparison, by the way, guys, what used to happen is that a max would be on a cooldown timer in a very similar way to a vehicle. So you would spawn it. If you then died within 30 seconds, you wouldn't be able to get another one of that type for another X number of minutes. Now, is there a cooldown on vehicles in Planetside 2, or is it all resource-based now?
There's a cooldown also.
Okay.
And the reason for that is because once you've unlocked all sorts of different certifications and items for your vehicle, if you had a ton of resources, you could just sit there and spawn a bunch of Vanguard tanks that are totally pimped out for you and all your homies. And we sort of want to avoid one individual person being able to outfit an entire army with completely maxed out tanks just because they have a lot of resources. So that person still has a cooldown time for being able to resummon that vehicle.
Okay, that seems reasonable. Ooh, that is a Sunderer. That's a nice big fat bus that has a ton of capacity. Now, I have been hearing various things about the transportation of Max. Yeah, that one's having a few issues. You stuck hydraulics on this thing, didn't you?
Kevmo's our vehicle designer, so he likes to put funny stuff on things. He put a rocket pack one time on an ATV, and it was sort of like a redneck engineering experiment. He crashed right into a rock afterwards.
I would like that, actually. You know, I would pay cash money for that. That sounds reasonable. Now, I'm just interested in terms of the transportation of max units. In Planetside 1, there were two ways to transport a max unit. Either in one of these big fat things, the Sunderer, or in the Galaxy dropship. So, what are your guys' thoughts on the transportation of maxes this time around?
We're doing the exact same thing. We've got the big ground-based version that you can transport in, and we've got the air-based version, which is the Galaxy. Maxes are still not going to be able to hop on ATVs. They would completely smash an ATV. We don't want them to be running around in tanks because it's kind of unfair to have just finally killed that tank and then a Max jumps out of it with two AV weapons and finishes you off. You can imagine. So we try to avoid that kind of stuff.
Yeah, that would be fairly ridiculous. I'm noticing something floating around there, something that obviously needs to be shot at regardless of which empire it happens to be.
Blow it up, Kevmo. Where is it?
I missed it.
Is there an airplane? Yeah, we're sort of off in a desolate area here. How about we head down to Zervan, which is our amp station. So this region that we're showing you guys right now is the area that we're going to be showing at E3. And at E3, for anybody who's watching the stream who's going to be lucky enough to be at E3, we're going to have a fully playable game demo on the floor. And anybody who's not, you guys are going to be re-streaming some of that game demo and doing some commentary on the game demo at E3, which is going to be really cool.
Oh yeah, you're going to be able to see some fantastically large battles, hopefully 12 plus live players on the floor at E3, plus hundreds from the various Sony offices will be making quite the mess by the looks of it.
Yes, indeed. So, yeah, the plan for E3 is basically to have... Oh, that's a friendly. The plan at E3 is to give everybody a taste of this area here, which is one of our capture points. One of the coolest things about Planetside is that these individual capture points are the size of an FPS map in a standard FPS game. If you're playing a urban battlefield map or like a typical Modern Warfare map, this base here that we're running around in is about the same size, and it supports hundreds of players being able to fight simultaneously here.
That looks squishy.
So Kevmo's driving a transport, so he has to switch seats to the gunner's seat every time he wants to kill somebody. It's not the most effective killing machine, unfortunately.
Oh well, never mind. Although, I've got to say, Sunderers were usually absolutely fantastic for running people down.
They are.
They are
Yes,
rather
indeed.
large, wonderful vehicles. Now, another Planetside 1 specific question. I'm trying to kind of mix things up here between general questions for the audience. There's plenty of people here who have never played Planetside before. And then, of course, many others that have. And they remember the transportation of larger vehicles, like one of these, for instance. And this used to be transported in a very large boxy vehicle called a Lodestar, which was a flying transport. I've not seen any sign of that as of yet. So what are you guys' thoughts at the moment on the transportation of larger vehicles?
Well, we don't have a Lodestar right now, so most of the larger vehicles are going to have to be transported on their own, using their own power. But down the road, we've talked about adding things like Lodestars and potentially allowing them to deploy similar to how our Galaxies deploy into a mobile vehicle spawning station. A lot of Planetside is about logistics, so being able to set up respawn points, resupply points. The Galaxy is sort of a fortified forward spawning base. Being able to have a portable vehicle bay, essentially, for you to be able to spawn vehicles at seems really appealing to me. So that's kind of one of our long-term plans.
Yeah, it definitely sounds like something that is rather enjoyable. Unfortunately, now the AMS is gone, which I think that's not really depressing for a lot of people, because driving an AMS was not an interesting thing. It wasn't that much fun.
Driving a Galaxy is so much funner.
Yeah, I would tend to agree with that. You can crash that into mountains, and that's much more enjoyable as far as I'm concerned. But now you spawn from a Galaxy instead of an AMS. But I assume the Galaxy doesn't have the AMS's cloaking field from the original game.
No, it doesn't. Although Kevmo and I have talked a little bit about allowing that to be something that you get as an add-on for the Galaxy. All of our vehicles, what you guys saw earlier with the character customization, having different weapons and each one of the weapons having various attachments on it, our vehicles are very similar. So this Prowler tank that Kevmo just got, he can completely customize the way it looks, and he'll be able to customize things like putting rangefinders on the cannon, being able to have like a coaxial turret on the thing in addition to the main cannon. So tons and tons of customization just within an individual vehicle. And one of those customizations for the Galaxy may very well be the ability to do a cloak when it's deployed.
Now, are you guys actually going to put the infamous quad cannon on the Prowler as an upgrade this time around, or are you just keeping that for internal testing?
Yeah, I mean, that's something that we talked about. Kevmo is nodding vigorously at the idea of the quad cannon, so.
I want it. More barrels. That's how TR roll.
I think it'll replace the coaxial turret if we do that.
I'm okay with that. I am absolutely okay with that. I would gladly drive that. The more cannons, the better, as far as I'm concerned. We've got a question in the chat, actually. Will the Galaxy still be able to transport light vehicles such as lightning tanks?
Right now, the Galaxy doesn't transport any vehicles, but we've been talking about, again, allowing it to have a customization that would allow it to load on a vehicle.
But there's got to be a trade-off to that, one would assume.
That's right. Like all of our other customizations, there's trade-offs to it. So if I had the vehicle, the loading a vehicle thing in, maybe I give up a couple seats on for infantry characters in there.
That absolutely makes sense. Now, later on in the development of Planetside's life, there was the holy grail, I suppose, of Galaxy development that came around. For the longest time, people were asking for a Galaxy gunship, and the Galaxy gunship did eventually come into the game in some form. Are you guys looking to replicate that this time around with a different loadout for the Galaxy?
Yep, absolutely. The Galaxy is going to be able to load out different weapons on it. He'll be able to have the equivalent of mortars or higher caliber cannons on it. And again, a lot of those sort of specs will be trade-off type things. So if I'm changing my Galaxy into a dude that's just all about gunships on it, then that's going to force me to give up some potential defensive capability on it or utility capability on it.
Looks like we've got our first crash.
Yeah, it looks like it.
Okay, not a problem.
We're actually scrambling on bug fixing right now to get ready for E3. So I have you on the very newest, latest development build, which hasn't had all of its bugs completely
Yep,
squashed.
a little bit shaken. Not a problem. That's why I have this beautiful picture of what appears to be T-Ray in a wetsuit right here as our little splash screen. Maybe it may not be. We'll find out. I know he's got a bit of a thing for bright colors.
Yeah. I've also been asked to make sure to clarify that one of our problems that we have down here is our streaming setup, and a lot of the frame rate issues on the stream aren't because of the game client, but because of the streaming setup, unfortunately.
Yeah, and as people have seen on my channel, we did capture 1080p footage at 30 FPS, and it wasn't a problem. It will run higher than that, needless to say, for first-person shooters, you're looking for at least 60, you can get that. So
Yeah, absolutely.
yeah, I'd like to just reaffirm that the lower frame rates are as a result of the stream. We're essentially restreaming a raw stream that's coming out of the Sony offices, so you should be able to see some much smoother gameplay coming out of E3.
That's right. Yeah, I mean, I have a completely newfound, well, I shouldn't say newfound respect because I respected the hell out of a lot of you guys earlier, but a definite newfound respect for the difficulties of doing this kind of live streaming stuff just from trying to set up this stream today.
It's definitely tricky. It's a bit of a challenge.
Yeah. I actually watched your pal DJ Wheat doing a tutorial on streaming at PAX, and I think I learned a thing or two. But
oh yeah, he knows his stuff. He has a fairly ridiculous setup. Those of you wondering, he actually uses several hardware capture cards. Not just one, because that would be for weak people. I think he has 3, if I recall correctly. So yeah, he's got wires all over the place. It's pretty damn fantastic.
Yeah, but the hoops we're jumping through here because we're streaming off software streaming to you guys, and then you guys are restreaming it with the Skype chat on top of it. So it's a little it's going through a bunch of hoops.
Oh yeah, it's fun times. Looks like, wow, that you know, I'm never gonna get used to this. Going to the US, you guys have the craziest sirens. I don't know what it is. It sounds incredibly bizarre.
You want to have the nee.
Yeah, exactly. That's that's stately. I feel alarmed if I hear that, but not too panicked. If I hear this, it sounds like there's going to be some kind of aerial invasion.
Yeah. Can you deal with our taxi cabs or our phone booths, or are those kind of foreign for you too?
I'm getting there with it. I'm getting there. It's taking a while. Now, we have a couple of requests, and ooh, that's a Mag Rider. Maybe we can blow that up. So, we've had a couple of requests about the use of the so-called Ace, which is the engineer's little toy. Why don't you explain a little bit about that if you can?
Yeah, so in Planetside 2, the Ace is very dynamic. You can basically spec it out with all kinds of different deployables, whether they're turrets that you're able to deploy or mines that you could use. They have different types of explosives. They also have things like being able to set up barriers, being able to set up little small cover pieces. So they're very much the fortification class as well as a vehicle support class. So Kevmo's actually running around here with an Ace right now, and one of the things that the Ace can do is place this in-place turret that then becomes a turret that anybody else can run up to and use. It's not just an auto turret. So it's really about teamwork and base defense. You place this turret and then somebody else can come and use it. And then as an engineer, you can run around and continue to heal vehicles and help out or place more turrets or place more mines. It's a very active role. And all that's facilitated by the Ace tool.
Very nice.
Shoot some more stuff.
Find some stuff to shoot.
That's the problem with the in-place turret, is it's in place once it's...
It's a bit of a bind. Oh, I feel quite sorry for it.
That blew apart.
That was unfortunate.
I'm trying to think of what other really cool stuff we could show that's changed significantly since the last time you were out here and captured so much footage.
We did get quite a bit, didn't we?
Yeah, you know, we've been running on all cylinders here for a couple months now, getting ready for E3 and then later beta, of course. For any of you guys that are interested in playing, I'd really like to encourage you to go sign up for our beta. We're going to be letting people in really, really quick, so if you want to play in the beta, now's the time to sign up.
Well, if you head on over to the announcement video on youtube.com/TotalHallout, there's actually a direct link there, so
yeah.
You just click that, get signed up, and everything will be wonderful. Now,
yes, indeed. Yes, indeed.
Yeah, I think what I might do, actually, is I may open up the chat for Q&A if you're up for it, Higby.
Sounds good to me, man.
Let's see what we can do with that. I've just got to remember the command to turn my subscriber mode off. Subscriber mode is now off, ladies and gentlemen. So I'm going to be taking questions from the chat while things are blown up with the Prowler, which is such a wonderful thing to see.
I love seeing Prowlers blow up, too.
No, Higby, no. You're getting it all wrong. Prowler would never blow up.
Come on. I see them explode every day, man. I see them dozens of them.
Well, obviously that's just on the test servers, because on the live servers, TR tanks wouldn't explode that easily, surely.
Well, I don't know. Vanguard tanks are pretty powerful, too. Each one of the Empires has their own strengths and weaknesses, and the strength of the Vanguard one is that it hits real hard.
Yes, it does, but it doesn't hit quite as fast as the Prowler, so if you've got better aim...
Yeah, the Prowler's all about maneuverability. Each one of our empires basically has their own unique vehicles, weapons, and those vehicles and weapons sort of support different tactics and different strengths and weaknesses in the empires. So the TR, which is the worst empire, obviously, is all about being able to be really quick and being able to throw the most bullets down a hallway in the shortest amount of time.
Yeah, which as far as I'm concerned, that's definitely the manly way to do it. I tend to find if you're looking for something that's a little bit more kid friendly, then New Conglomerate seems like the way to go.
Well, the New Conglomerate is all about looking suave, being cool, having weapons that do a lot of damage, that are super effective, as well as rockets that fire a little bit slower, but each one is like a little thermonuclear bomb, that sort of stuff. Also, I heard a rumor that the creative director of the game is a New Conglomerate fan, so they're probably going to be the most overpowered. Just for any of you guys out there who are thinking about which empire you wanted to choose.
Yeah, that is definitely a possibility, and it is rather unfortunate, of course, that he has chosen to side with the Rebel scum. But I think things can be done, certainly. We have ways of changing things around in that regard. Now, I did try and have slow mode on. For some inexplicable reason, it's not working, which means this is scrolling quite heavily. I'm going to try and do what I can here to pick up some questions.
Sounds good to me. I'll just keep talking about empires then, because the third empire, which we haven't talked about yet, was the Vanu sovereignty. And they're all about alien technology. They use a lot of sci-fi inspired weaponry. So if you are all about guns that go pew-pew and vehicles that, for instance, float magnetically, can strafe, or can ascend and descend and move laterally just as fast as they can move forward and backward in the case of the Scythe air superiority fighter, then the Vanu sovereignty might be the one for you. But you kind of have to live with being purple and being on the same faction as our art director, Trammell, who you really don't want to be on the same faction with him.
He is a very stylish individual, however. That's something I have noticed.
Yeah. I think Vanu are all about style over substance for sure.
Yeah, that's something we can both agree on at least. Yeah, unfortunately, our chat is basically broken now, so there's nothing we can really do about that. I'm trying to get the subscribe mode back on, but it's not working. That's quite sad, so I guess I'll just have to try and interpret these questions as best I can.
So you can see Kevmo right now is driving on the Mag Rider, and because it's a magnetically lifted tank, it handles quite a bit differently than the other tanks. It can kind of strafe. When it goes over bumps, it sort of smoothly bounces over them rather than actually like rolling over them and tilting like a normal tank would. It's a really interesting dynamic to be in a hover tank versus a normal treaded tank, especially in the enormous 50 tanks fighting against 75 tanks kind of giant battles that are facilitated in Planetside 2.
Now, there was something that you mentioned while I was at the studio, something we didn't really get to cover in great detail. The idea that taking certain bases, such as in Planetside 1, can not only confer various benefits to you, but also take benefits away from the other empires, and that taking out specific bases can be a strategic choice. Would you like to explain a bit more about that?
Yeah, totally. So Planetside is a game that has a lot of strategy to it. When you start thinking about a game, a normal shooter game, the level of depth there isn't really, there's not multiple layers of it. In Planetside, there's a lot of strategic thinking that sort of goes into the way that you approach capturing bases. One of those things is a certain empire might own bases or be attacking you somewhere who's really powerful if they have something like a railgun on their tank. For instance, this particular Mag Rider tank, it has secondary weapons which are extremely powerful, and those may require some resources to be able to be used. So if you wanted to deny the enemy the ability to summon these tanks and be able to fight you using their best weapons, one of the ways that you can do that is by capturing the areas on the map that yield those type of resources before you fight them head on. So a lot of the gameplay kind of centers around trying to corner the market on different types of resources so that you can outfit your vehicles as well as possible. And in practice, what ends up happening is people will sort of see that, the Terran Republic are grabbing all of X type of resource. So we got to be really careful and make sure that we're defending those ones a little bit more vigorously than we're defending the ones that maybe we have a surplus of. So a lot of long-term strategic and logistical thought goes into, which base are we going to defend right now? Which one's the most important for us to hold? And that level of strategic depth is awesome for something like an FPS game like this, a persistent FPS game.
Are we also going to see the return of base-specific bonuses, such as in Planetside 1, if you were to hold... I'm now trying to remember, because it's been a while since I played. If I recall correctly, holding an amp station would give a kind of shield for your vehicle.
We don't have that on amp stations. We do have certain benefits. For instance, the tech facility, which is one of our main facility types, is the only one. That was a good shot, dude. Is one of the only facilities that gives you access to the big Galaxy transport ships. So you have to own those facilities to be able to get access to those transports. You know, further down the road, we might do things like saying the tech facility gives you access to certain types of attachments, or certain types, or being able to field vehicles faster. The overall global spawn timer for vehicles might be lower if you own amp stations, for instance.
Okay.
So we are talking about large continental scale empire bonuses based on owning territory beyond just resources. But we're still working out the details on those, so I don't really want to commit to one particular thing versus another.
Mm-hmm. And to clarify on the subject of vehicles, since we've got a few people actually asking questions here, so depending on the loadout that you take on a vehicle, it can actually affect its cost?
Well, that's one of the things that we've talked about too, and that's something that we're going to really shake out during beta, is deciding whether or not we want attachments to be something that increase the cost of vehicles or not. Currently they don't. And the main reason for that is we just wanted to make sure that you weren't ever incentivized to not use the attachments that you've earned and unlocked.
Okay.
If you decided you wanted to play a tank and you wanted to use these specific things, we didn't want to limit your potential loadout based on resources. We just kind of wanted to limit the actual availability of the tank based on the resources. So that's another thing that we're going to decide based on a lot of player feedback in beta, which we're really looking forward to being able to get people in and tell us what they think about how some of this stuff is set up.
Yeah, that's fair enough. Now, there is something I would personally like to see, since we have seen quite a bit of the bases, but what we haven't seen an awful lot of were the smaller areas, the fact that there are still towers in the game, and the smaller outpost areas that you demonstrated while I was there at the studio. Is there any chance we can have a look at some of those?
Sure, Kevin. Do you want to pop up to the ridge up here? So this central area is basically defined primarily by the this one amp station battle. But if we just hop right up to the ridge of this canyon, we'll be able to start seeing some different little smaller outposts that are on the periphery. Now these are the type of outposts that you're going to want to go capture before you go fight in here. Not only so that you have a respawn point. Here we have a small outpost right here, and then in the distance you can see that larger dome structure is a biolab, which is another large-scale facility. So you'll want to come up here, you'll want to capture these towers, capture these small facilities so that you have a territory influence bonus when you're capturing that amp station down below. And that basically will give you a percentage increase to how long it takes for you to capture that.
I've noticed that you seem to have completed the scythe cockpit to some degree.
Yeah. It's starting to come together. So we have the 3D cockpits with all the UI actually rendering into the cockpit, which is pretty cool. All of the vehicle cockpits now are all completely finished, I think, right?
Yep.
Yeah. So this really gives you... The Scythe is the strangest flying airplane. I don't know if it really picks up very well on the stream, but the idea behind it is that it can accelerate and decelerate not only up and down, or not only forward and backwards, but up and down and side to side. It can yaw very quickly, so it is an extremely odd feeling vehicle.
Which seems like a UFO. That seems like
right.
how it would actually fly.
That's right. That's exactly what we wanted to do, is make it feel like it flies like a UFO.
Could we see the flight ceiling?
There's not much of one. We can go up really, really far if you want.
Let's go up. Let's see what happens. I'm very interested.
How high do you want to go?
How high can you go?
I think 1,000 meters right now. And then looking down from up here, you can see a pretty large-scale continent down below you.
That is rather large.
Yeah, and you can see our draw distances are huge. You're seeing probably about 4 kilometers off into the distance here. So
that's scary impressive. Now, there is something that I did see while I was filming, that we were able to go out of bounds, which was something that we've seen in a lot of different FPS, but it wasn't really so much in Planetside. In fact, you would eventually go out of bounds, if I recall correctly, but you could go quite far out from the continent, actually onto these areas which were essentially just ocean. Now, do you plan on having these oceans around the edge of the continents this time around?
We do have oceans around the edge of the continent. One of the reasons that we have it set up this way is we didn't want people to be idling way off on the edge of the continent. We wanted people to kind of be more actively in the center point. So the out of bounds regions keep you in the combat zone. Essentially, anytime you're not in a region that's capturable, you're considered to be out of bounds. And when you're in a region that's capturable, you're basically in a place that can be fought over. And we wanted to sort of make sure that we were keeping people in combat areas. That's the main reason that it's set up that way right now.
Okay. And do you perhaps plan on giving people a little bit more leeway? Because one of the things that used to be done in Planetside 1 is that more often than not, a Galaxy dropship with a Spec Ops team would go around the coast in order to avoid major engagements and anti-aircraft fire, and that was actually a valid strategy for outfits. Is that something that you would like to see again, or is it just something that you feel isn't really conducive to a good combat environment?
No, I think that there's definitely value to those sort of tactics. I love the idea of people being able to sort of surreptitiously sneak in behind enemy lines and stuff like that. And we've made sure to make a lot of our mechanics choices to allow that sort of thing to happen. I kind of prefer for people to be flying over gameplay areas rather than flying way outside the edge of the map and then flying back in from the opposite direction. One of the things that we did with Planetside 2 that's really an evolution over what Planetside 1 did, I believe, is make it like 2000. I was just asking Kevbo to increase the time of day so you guys can see the clouds moving a little bit faster and the shadows shifting on the ground and stuff while he's up here, which is usually pretty impressive looking. So one of the things that we've done with Planetside 2 is we've ensured that every area of the continent is always contestable. So rather than just fighting between a point and another point, like in Planetside 1, you would fight between a biolab and an amp station, and you kind of had to fight within that line between those two places. We opened it up by creating the territory control system, and the hexes on the map, those regions that you go and capture, really make it so that no matter where you are on the map, the area that you're fighting in is a contestable spot. And so you can go back behind enemy lines. You can take a Spec Ops team back behind enemy lines and start capturing a base. But because of the territory control system, you're going to have a big deficit in terms of how long it's going to take for you to capture it compared to the defenders who have that territory completely surrounded are going to be able to jump in and really quickly recapture that territory. So again, we really want to make sure that that sort of Spec Ops gameplay is available and people can do it, but they have to put a concentrated effort into it instead of just going in a mosquito, one person running around and backhacking, causing all sort of backlines confusion without really attempting to capture anything or hold anything, and players are having to kind of go back and respond to some dude who's just trolling them. Essentially, we wanted to avoid that.
That was damn infuriating, if I recall correctly. That was not fun, unfortunately.
I don't know if you guys had seen the tech facility before, or if you captured any footage of that one.
I don't believe we did. So it would actually be nice to run around inside a tech facility, for instance, because we haven't seen a huge amount of the indoor areas where quite a lot of this combat's going to be taking place.
Sure. How about we hop in here really quick? This is one of the interiors that's not completely finished yet, so some of the lighting in here isn't finished, but I have no problem giving you guys a quick tour.
Let's do it. I'm sure the guys will be understanding. And if they're not, we'll ban them.
Yeah, so just do client time warp 1.
Yeah.
All right, cool. All right, so we can see the NS sign on there means that this facility isn't currently captured. It's not owned by any empire. In the actual game proper, I don't see that happening very often. I'm guessing most of these will probably be under contention at all times. So right now we're walking into the vehicle bay. This area is where players go to summon vehicles, and they go out these large doors on the side. And then if we go up the stairs here, we'll be able to start seeing some of the more infantry-focused gameplay areas. So throughout this facility, there's going to be a couple different capture points that you can hold, and each one of those capture points helps progress your capture timer on this particular base. And once it's maxed out, then the base flips over and it's yours. So holding as many different capture nodes within it as possible during the battle just helps you progress versus the other empires that might be fighting over it.
No, I do. This does actually remind me of the previous tech facility. If I recall correctly, at least one or two of the bases in Planetside did have these underground facilities that would allow you to spawn vehicles, but a lot of them were outside and somewhat vulnerable to being bombed.
Yep, that's right. So our amp station, for instance, is very open in the courtyard, the infantry courtyard. There's some areas where you're indoors, but it's also an extremely open area, and you can not only be fighting against aircraft that are flying over you, but also get bombarded by tanks that are up on a ridge, for instance. So it allows vehicles to really be part of the base capture gameplay more than they could be in Planetside 1. This particular base and our biolab base are a little bit more infantry focused. You can't really do too much with an airplane in here unless you're a really, really amazing pilot. And tanks really can't do anything in here either. So you have to actually get off your vehicles and run around here and use some elbow grease to capture this base.
Can we have official confirmation of the return of /EM Cabbage Patch, please?
A lot of people have been asking about emotes lately. We're going to have to figure out something we can do about that. We did a motion capture a few weeks ago, but we didn't capture any dancing emotes, so we'll need to do that. Do you want to do some motion capture for us?
Oh yeah, absolutely. I'll fly back to San Diego to do EM Cabbage Patch without question.
Yeah, I mean, that's one of the cool things, again, about having a game like this, is you can have an FPS that also has a massive dance party in it. But I don't know if that's a positive or a negative, but
it's a positive when it gets bombed by liberators. I think there was a certain degree of silliness. I'd actually like to talk about that because after I showed the video with the customization, there has been some concern from the community, without question, that the game, and with all of its cosmetic customization, is getting just a little bit silly, perhaps going a little bit over the top. Does the team have any fears in that regard?
Well, I mean, my philosophy is that as long as it's not something completely ridiculous and we don't have, Hello Kitty bumper stickers and stuff like that you can put on your vehicle, that it's mostly okay. Here we see Kebmo has a max here. So just to let you guys know what all these -1s are over here on the side, since he's using admin commands to switch between empires and stuff, the class list gets busted when you do that.
Yeah.
But here we see the NC Max, which is the heavy mechanized unit. And on it, you can attach all sorts of stuff. So he just attached an armor customization that's just giving him some more bulky-looking armor on him. Do you have any camo patterns? Do /item add all, and then reopen this. Actually, what you probably need to do is switch empires and then switch back to NC, and then they'll show up.
Yes, by the way, that is a cannon on an ATV, because why not?
There you go. So Kebo's now showing off some of the different camo customizations on here, and I think the one that we were looking at before on the Loverator was the zebra camo. Yes. That was causing some consternation, right?
Yeah, there was also the Bacon Max for the TR.
That's right. Yeah. So, I mean, here you can see a range of different camo patterns that are available for the NC. There's a couple different blue and gray type camos that are very much in line with the NC color schemes, but we also have some more silly ones like that giraffe skin, or is that a giraffe skin or a cheetah skin? I'm not really sure. And a zebra skin on there, and also some camos that are going to be really useful. If I want to fight in a desert area, I probably want to grab that desert camo. If I'm fighting on Amerish, which is a more verdant continent, then I might want to have a green jungle camo on.
Was that just confirmation of Amaresh, by the way?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I mean, we'll have 3 continents at launch. This one that we've been running around on is Indar, and we're also working on Amerish, which is a jungle continent. It's actually sort of more of a Scottish Highlands type continent than a jungle continent, I should say. The world designers are going to be mad at me if I misrepresent that one. And our last one is probably going to be Esamir, which is an ice continent.
Ah, yes, I remember that. That was the one with the sheer cliffs that I kept driving my AMS off.
That's right.
That sounds about right. Those sheer cliffs better make a return, otherwise I will not be pleased.
So, I don't know, I think you talked about this in your video, but the Maxes are really cool because they have 2 different customizable weapons. So he has an anti-infantry weapon on his left arm right now, and an anti-vehicle weapon on his right arm. If he wanted to, he could just really easily pick 2 anti-infantry weapons or 2 anti-vehicle weapons, and basically very easily, specialize his role to one particular thing.
Yeah, I think I might have actually been wrong with that. I think it was Serajin, actually, that was the one with the craziness. Esamir was fairly flat, but never mind.
Yeah, Esamir was pretty much like a what do you call it? A tundra. Tundra.
Tundra, yes, that's the correct one. We're just switching over to splash screen for a second, folks, while they reload the game. So we've got a black screen here at the moment. It is the latest build, so needless to say, it is not quite there yet in terms of bug fixing.
Yeah, I would have shown you guys the build is on our more stable server, but it's the same build that you were showing earlier, so I wanted to show you guys some newer stuff.
Yeah, and you can very clearly see that, and we're already back in. You guys are fast over there. Now, Just to sort of finish off the whole camo discussion, I guess, there are some people that argue with that it's okay to have pretty much any camo you want because silhouette identification is more important. There are others that argue that the easiest way to identify an enemy from a friendly is the fact that they're wearing very bright faction colors. How do you guys strike a balance between that in terms of the faction colors, but also have customization from the camo and skin side of things?
Well, one of the things that we've been pretty adamant about is not letting you, for instance, take this max and put purple and teal on it. We won't have the ability for you to make yourself intentionally look more Vanu-like with customizations. So all of our customizations are much more neutral in appearance, or they follow the Empire color that's your particular Empire. That's a big piece of it. And then I think the first argument is really true. We've spent a lot of time looking at silhouette and making sure that our silhouettes are really distinctive for each one of our classes and for each one of our empires. So VS Max, an NZ Max, and a TR Max are very difficult to mistake for one another. And similarly, the Empire-specific air vehicles and ground vehicles are extremely discernible from one another compared to, for instance, like if you're playing a Battlefield type game, it's kind of hard to tell the difference, or it's harder to tell the difference than it would be in our game, since we have extremely distinct silhouettes for those kind of things.
Now, I've got to say, in terms of silhouettes, there is something else that people have been bringing up, the idea that, yes, you can play a female character in this particular game. People are wondering, female max suit, is there a difference between the male and the female version of it?
No, there's not. One of our philosophies with female characters was to make them be legitimate soldiers. We didn't want them to be sexed up eye candy in this game. We wanted them to look and feel like soldiers that are fighting in the war. The max suits are gigantic and bulky, and it wouldn't have made a lot of sense for us to make them have bikini regions and stuff like that with that philosophy in mind.
Oh, thank God for that.
I can actually even have Kevmo pop out of here really quick and create a female character so you can see some of the differences. Like, the difference isn't actually that striking, and it's because most of these characters are in armor, so their silhouette doesn't even change significantly when you're playing a female versus a male. It's very clearly a female character, but hop in game with this one real quick and show some of the customization options that are available for her. But she looks like a soldier. She's wearing the same types of pieces of armor. She's not.
Yeah.
It would have been really easy for us to make her thighs not have the Kevlar armor texture on it and then be exposed instead. But we wanted to make sure that the game felt like it was a real.
Oh, hello.
We're in the Vanu staging area here, apparently.
Oh, God, grenade.
Well, we found the dance party.
The testers are actually capturing right now for some of the stuff that we're doing for E3, so that's why there's a lot of them in there.
Ah, a lot of grenades going off for whatever reason.
Hit F2 and show your character in the world here. Control F2, I mean. Yeah, so I mean, you can see that she looks like a soldier. If you look at movies, one of my favorite movies to use as an example for this is Starship Troopers, where the female characters are just running right along the male soldiers, and it felt so natural and felt so normal. And as in a sci-fi war game, that's how I want it to be. I didn't want it to be something where female characters were the typical fantasy wearing nothing kind of armor.
Yeah, I think we've had enough of that, quite frankly. We're not 13 years old anymore. Trying to think if there's anything I'm good. It would be nice, actually, to see the range of heavy weapons that's currently available. Now, if I recall correctly, you guys haven't got the big signature heavy assault weapons in the game yet.
That's right. Yeah, we don't. But we do have rocket launchers and LMGs, which are sort of the heaviest infantry weapons. So the heavy assault weapons, the ones that you're talking about at least, are like the mini chain gun, the lasher, and of course the best one, which is the jackhammer.
The easiest one, yeah.
Yeah. Well, obviously the most powerful and coolest one. So, and then those weapons are also available on this heavy assault class. So as a heavy assault character, one of your roles can be being a strong anti-infantry character, and you would replace your rocket launcher with your chain gun in that case. Is it the same
spot.
same texture that you're clicking on?
I don't know. It's in the UI.
Okay. Yeah, so we got an issue with one of those textures, I guess. But being able to give up your rocket launcher, which is your anti-vehicle personalization, to be able to get anti-infantry personalization instead is sort of the philosophy there and the trade-off for heavy assault characters.
Certainly makes sense. Now, if I recall correctly, the mini chain gun has not gone. You are intended to bring it back, but because of the way that the mini chain gun is actually held, you're having to create another set of animations and stances for that. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's exactly right. So they're kind of like, they're slung rather than being a rifle. So yeah, they have an entire different animation set, and that's the reason they're not in the game client right now.
Makes perfect sense.
Yep.
I'll switch back into the game, as we can see.
And those are the type of things where, throughout beta we're going to be continuing to add. And another awesome thing is it's an MMO, so we have years of content that we have planned already, that we're already thinking of what kind of features we're going to have. And it's really important to us to get feedback from the community and get feedback from our players on what type of features are important to them, what sort of additions to the game they want to see in the future. So starting in beta and then continuing on for the lifetime of this game, we're going to be adding to it and modifying it based on the needs and the desires of the player base.
Now, you mentioned a staging area. Is this actually the warp gate area that you'll be forced back to if you lose all control of the continent, or is that a different area that we could have a look at?
That's a completely different area on the opposite side of the continent. These were just staging areas that we set up specifically for the E3 gameplay, so that we have a TR, an NC, and a VS little forward operating base on each one of these. Kibble can hop into a Reaver real quick and do a flyby of one of the warp gates over on the... You got no resources? You got to give yourself some resources. Yeah, that's easier.
They don't even give their staff resources. That's terrible. What working conditions have you got going on over there?
Well, I mean, he has to work for it. He's been spending his resources on vehicles and crashing them and stuff, so it's only equitable. We can't just give them away.
Now, to clarify, for those that do not already know this, the Reaver is now a new conglomerate-specific aircraft. The Mosquito has been given to the Terran Republic, and there's a new vehicle, the Scythe, which is the Vanu Sovereignty's aircraft of choice.
That's right. That's exactly right. And each of them have their own different flight characteristics. They'll have access to different types of weapon systems. They have different strengths and weaknesses in terms of either being more hardy, being faster, having different maneuverability. So they definitely have a unique and different feel to them.
Although what we can say is that they can all pretty much fulfill the same role, just in a slightly different way.
Yeah. Yep, exactly. And they'll all be able to... Like the Reaver, for instance, by default, you're going to crash into that, I think.
Yeah, that's what I was...
Is that the Vanu warp gate that it's about to go into?
Yeah, he shouldn't go in there. So each one of the vehicles has its kind of default strength, and the default strength for the Reaver is that it's kind of the toughest and its weapons hit the hardest. But through customization, you can decrease those things and increase other things like speed, and all the vehicles are sort of similar to that, where they all have a default starting point, but they can branch out from there to become stronger in different areas, just based on playstyle of the user, the needs of your empire, the needs of your outfit, whatever.
Now the question is, can you hijack other people's vehicles? That was something that could be done in Planetside.
Jacking's not in the game right now. A big reason for that is the customizations that are on the vehicles, but it's also something that we've talked about adding, because one of the things that this project has been really cool about is we've been working with the community since we first announced the game, interacting with folks on different message boards and through Twitter and stuff. And one of the overwhelming pieces of feedback we've been getting as we've been talking more and more about the game systems has been that people want jacking. So it's something that we've been revisiting, and we've definitely been talking about being able to add that and what sort of things we would need to do to be able to add that back in.
Yeah, it was certainly a fun feature of the Infiltrator, the idea that you could steal a vehicle and actually do a fair amount of damage and disrupt the defenses of a base using that kind of technique. And we have seen the ability to hijack turrets. That was actually in the footage. We weren't able to do it, but yes, you could actually hack a turret and use that against the people that were controlling that particular base. When it comes down to the Infiltrator, though, the role has somewhat changed this time around. The Infiltrator now has a sniper rifle, which was available in the first game, but it was often something that you saw on a heavier class because an Infiltrator couldn't actually hold a rifle. The inventory was actually block-based. It was like playing inventory Tetris. You could only carry certain things. So how does the Infiltrator now work as a cloaking class with a sniper rifle?
So earlier we kind of went through some of the different specs that are available in the cert tree. One of the things that you're going to be able to customize with the Infiltrator is his cloaking device. You'll be able to get a cloaking device. So now Kevmo's running around as an Infiltrator. So as this Infiltrator, who'd you kill there? His drop pod didn't succeed. So as this Infiltrator, like activate your cloak really quick. You'll be able to see that when he cloaks here, it's using up fuel down here in the bottom right-hand corner. That fuel is based on what type of cloak that you have equipped, and the type of cloak you have equipped is based on what certifications you've unlocked so far. So one of the different cloaks that you can get is one that will allow you to stay cloaked much longer, but the trade-off for that is then that you can't bring a large rifle with you anymore. So now you're reliant on either using your different gadgets or your pistol or your melee weapon to get kills. So, a perfectly viable role with the Infiltrator will be getting a bunch of C4 or boomers in Planetside, sneaking behind enemy lines with a cloaking device, placing them on stuff and blowing them up. You won't be able to use that same really excellent 100% perfect cloaking device when you're running around with a sniper rifle, but when you have that sniper rifle, your cloaking device sort of serves the same role as a ghillie suit. It allows you to get some camouflage while you're moving from sniping point to sniping point, but it's not 100% perfect. You can still see that person. You see an outline of them. It's just a little extra camo that they use.
So what you've essentially got here is, while you do call it an Infiltrator class, those two different roles are almost classes in and of themselves.
That's right. Yeah. So similar to what we were talking about just now with the heavy assault character having a strong anti-infantry role or a strong anti-vehicle role, most of our classes in the game have lots of very distinct roles and distinct capabilities that they'll be able to play. So, if you wanted to play a medic, for instance, as a pure support character, where all you were really doing is running around healing people, reviving people, and stuff like that, that's a spec that you can use. But you can also play a medic more like a combat medic, where, you have the ability to heal people, but it's more of an augment than your primary role. Multi roles and lots of diversity and lots of personalization is one of the keystone features of the game.
Now, I'm interested to know whether or not we're going to be seeing, now that we do have full hitboxes, locational damage on individual characters, will we be seeing one-shot, one-kill rifles?
We do have some one-shot, one-kill rifles. It's dependent, again, on certifications, on specialization, and also what kind of guy you're shooting. You're not going to be able to get a one-shot headshot kill on a max unit, for instance, as easily, although you'll be able to do significant damage to him with a headshot. But you would be able to potentially do that to a light assault character or another Infiltrator.
Now, I've had quite a few questions about the way that most of the infantry weapons work. People are using terms like hit scan or projectile weapons. Could you tell us a little bit more about the projectile modeling of each weapon, whether or not we will be seeing hit scan style weapons or whether we'll have bullet travel time?
We do have bullet travel time. We do have full server-bound ballistics right now. So bullets do drop over time. That's something that the TR and New Conglomerate have to worry about. The Vanu Sovereignty, who use more energy-based weapons, plasma guns and lasers and stuff, don't have to worry about that as much. But yeah, we do have full bullet drop and ballistics on these guns. As for hit scan, I can't think of any hit scan weapons that we have right now. They're all projectile-based.
Yeah, I can actually see the projectile flying forward there, and it obviously does have some travel time, so that is going to make sniping just a little bit trickier.
Switch to a heavy assault really quick and then make it nighttime so we can see the tracers firing off, and then you'll be able to see a lot of bullet drop happening with that. This menu will not be available in the final game.
Needless to say. Although if you want to just give it to me, then that'll be okay.
So you can see as you're firing here, these bullets drop. It's not a huge significant drop. If you're sniping and you're sniping over several hundred meters, you're definitely going to have to take it into account. But for most urban type fighting or being within a couple, like maybe 100, 150 meters from another person, you're not going to have to factor it in too terribly much.
Okay. Now, how far do you really want to go in terms of the gun variants? We saw an awful lot of what appeared to be test guns when we took footage at your studio there, but there are many people that have said, this is great. It's awesome that we have not only customization in terms of what sights we want and add-ons, but that there are also just variants of different guns that fire slightly faster, slower, more accurate, less accurate. How far do you really want to go with that?
Well, we want to go pretty far. One of the main things is we want to make sure that there's a pretty even playing field across all empires. Unfortunately, I can't really make it so the NC is just completely dominant. But yeah, making it so that each one of the empires can configure an assault rifle that, for instance, feels closer to the other empires is definitely a goal, without necessarily just being able to completely step on the weapons that the other empire has. So yeah, I mean, we're going to have a tremendous amount of that. One of our goals, of course, is to make the game be competitive, though. So when we're adding new weapons to the game, we're going to try not to do that on like a weekly basis, so you have to relearn how the game plays every single time a patch comes out with 10 new weapons in it. We'll probably let things settle a little bit more, have more, balance passes on existing weapons rather than a ton of new weapons every single patch. But yeah, I mean, each class is going to have access to, the Light Assault has access to, I don't know, a couple dozen weapons right now, since he has access to shotguns, he has access to carbines, SMGs, pistols. So there's a huge number of each one of those items, actually.
Now, I just would love to see just the extent that this continent actually goes at the moment. How much of this continent is available, or have you actually blocked some of it off with the out-of-bounds system?
Well, for E3, we've blocked off quite a bit of it with out-of-bounds area, but the majority of it's available for us to fly around in right now.
Can we go from one side to the other, see how long it takes?
Sure. Yeah, so he's been flying from one warp gate. Let's see where you're at right now. So he's sort of in the center of the continent right now.
Okay.
And this vehicle is one of the fastest vehicles in the game. So you're not going to be moving too much faster than this guy is going right now. So down below you here, you got several square kilometers of different areas to fight over. You can see on that map that he just brought up, each one of those regions on that map is a different contestable area. So we're at our cruising altitude here of 623 meters. If you look off to the left, you can see the beautiful amp station. If you look off to the right, you can see the biolab. I've always wanted to do that aircraft captain thing, but I don't have the voice for it. You really need to have the really raspy sounding voice to be able to do that.
Still got this out.
I don't think it should sound like that either. That doesn't inspire confidence in me.
Sorry. I missed my calling, or maybe I didn't miss my calling, I guess.
Yeah, I think you can stick to game design for the time being. If it all falls through, then you can go for the whole airline captaincy thing.
Yeah, so that was more or less flying about half of the continent, since he started halfway and he didn't go all the way to the edge. But that gives you a pretty good idea of roughly how big this is. And then the flip side of this is actually running across the thing.
Yeah.
When you're walking across it, it takes quite a bit longer than taking the as the crows flies routes here. You'll notice as he's flying through, the sky file is doing these really dramatic shifts. That's one of the other things that we sort of need to clean up, is making sure that those are a little bit more subtle as you're flying from region to region.
Yeah, because you're looking to have various biomes on one continent this time around, aren't you? Rather than just having, this is a forest continent, and that's all that's there.
That's exactly right. So you can see here, as Kevmo attempts to navigate the trench, you can see that he's now in a very desolate desert area. We transited from being in a more canyon-based area to being in a highlands area that had some trees and some more greenery, and now he's in an extremely desolate, flat desert area. These areas were all sort of designed to encourage different types of gameplay. Also, the canyon area is an area where ground vehicles, infantry, and airplanes can all sort of play together, because the constraints on maneuverability for the ground and air vehicles make infantry a little bit more balanced there. In this type of area, ground vehicles are going to have a much better time of being able to progress and attack targets all over the place, since it's a little bit flatter.
Now, if I recall correctly, you mentioned that you guys were looking to implement some more extreme weather effects into the game as the development continued.
Yep, that's part of another part of our ongoing plan post-launch is to add weather into the game. We're actually really excited about that feature, making the battlefield dynamic, having time of day, having weather, those sort of things that make the fights around each one of these facilities feel new and fresh every single time you do it, is something that we're really, really, really excited about doing. Weather effects, not only will they be dynamic because it'll be a thunderstorm happening sometimes, but we'll also be able to say if there's a huge battle happening off in the distance, the smoke rising from that battle actually affects the clouds in the sky, makes it so that you don't have as much visibility off in that direction.
You can actually
yeah,
do that?
absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. So being able to dynamically affect weather based on conditions on the ground and things that are happening on the ground is part of the plan for that system.
Can we have a look at the inside of that tower that you just flew by? I'm very curious as to what that looks like, assuming there is an inside this time around.
Yeah, there is.
Now, for those who play Planetside 1, you will remember tower fights as being fairly important because they were one of the best areas to spawn if you were going to attack a base. So often these areas were in very high contention, but they're also very close quarters. They became something of a meat grinder.
Nice landing.
Not bad, not bad. Now, this particular tower actually does have landing pads. There were air towers in the original Planetside as well. That would enable you to repair your air vehicles.
That's right. Yeah, so Kevmo's sort of doing some balcony hopping here. He's playing the platformer mini game. And then, yeah, you can see here that this has not only vehicle resupply, but you can actually get air vehicles from this. There's a spawn room within here, so if your Empire owns this particular region, you'll be able to respawn at this location. As well as there's a capture room, which is down below.
How many designs interior-wise of tower do you have at this point? I believe there used to be 3 in total, although they were extremely similar in the way that they were laid out in the original game.
We have 2 different types of towers right now. We have this one, which is sort of the larger, more multi-story one, and then we have one that's basically a vehicle spawning tower that doesn't have as much interior space to it.
Are you trying to move away from the actual tower fighting system with this particular version of the game, since it does seem like there's more reason to be outside this time around?
Well, anytime you want to capture this region, you're definitely going to have to come into this tower. So this is going to be a focal point of battles for people for sure. Exactly as it was in the original Planetside. In Planetside, you would capture a tower so that you were able to have a respawn point for being able to capture a nearby facility. At least in most cases, that's why you were fighting over towers. In this game, you're going to be doing it because it's going to give you access to the entire region. You're going to own that whole region. And it also is a nearby respawn point for vehicles and infantry.
And there is the beautiful vista view outside.
Yeah, you can kind of see a little preview of what it might look like when we got the dynamic weather in over here with these smokestacks.
Yeah, just a little bit.
Here. So yeah, if you can imagine those basically creating cloud formations up above it instead of just floating off into nothingness, then that'll happen. We have a fully dynamic cloud system in the game right now too, so as the time of day shifts, you'll see the clouds actually modulating along, and the sun passes behind them, it actually darkens for a little while, and the atmospheric scattering will come off of them, making the light beams come through and stuff. So not only does it create a real sense of place and a sense of dynamicism to the world, but it also looks really cool.
It's not a terrible looking game that you got for yourselves there, Higby.
Yeah.
It's okay. It's not bad. That is a large flying duck, aka a galaxy. It's looking a bit wonky. Oh, there it is.
Yeah, he's doing all right.
He hasn't crashed into a canyon yet. That's more than I can say for myself.
Oh gosh.
What? That seemed.
Did he crash?
Yeah.
Did he?
Well, I
explode?
don't think he's pulling out of that anytime soon.
Maybe he was taken after you. I have a feeling that some of the people on our team are actually trolling us right now, trying to get some scream time on the stream.
I'm okay with that.
You remember being here, we're in that same conference room with the big glass wall on the side of it. So I can see outside and see that there's a lot of people that are in the game right now. I have a feeling they're trying to fly in front of the stream.
$50 for the first man that lands a galaxy on top of Higby's head. 75 if it's a TR Galaxy.
Yeah, these guys are having fun. It's a good thing when you have fun at your job.
I tend to find that.
I bet you do, man. You have a great job.
It's okay. Sometimes people shout at me for it. Video games
Yeah.
are serious business, as we're all well aware.
Yep. Yes, indeed. Yeah, so I mean, that's pretty much where we're at right now with gameplay and stuff. So it's a really exciting time on the team. And as I mentioned, I hope that everybody watching and everybody who goes through and watches the VODs will go and sign up for beta because that's going to be happening pretty quick.
Yep, head on over to youtube.com/TotalHalibut, click on the PlanetSide 2 E3 partnership announcement video, and you will see a link there to take you directly to that beta sign up. Or if you are watching this on the VOD on my YouTube channel at a later date, you didn't catch the live stream, there'll also be a link in the description below this video. The first time you're going to see the really big scale fighting is going to be at E3, which will be a live stream event. So if you are not there, you will be able to participate in spirit and watch the violence.
Yes, indeed. Yes, indeed. I also like to mention that any of you guys who want to keep up on what we're doing on Planetside 2, we are constantly on Twitter and Facebook and all these other sites sending out behind-the-scenes information about the game, screenshots of development stuff, assets that are in production, asking for feedback about whether something looks cool or something should be changed. So, yeah, go find us on those sites and follow us and be a part of helping us make this game.
There you go, folks. That's a look at Planetside 2. Any final words, Higby? Anything that you'd like to show us before we wrap this stream up?
I just want to say thanks to all the watchers. Thank you for taking the time to help get this stream going today, John. And we'll see you at E3, and we'll see all the rest of you guys in beta or beyond in Planetside 2.
Absolutely. Ladies and gentlemen, Matt Higby, Creative Director for Sony Online Entertainment. Planetside 2, you will be seeing more of that next week, a hell of a lot more of that next week. And you will be seeing the big battles that you have been looking for. Thanks a lot for watching. Special thanks go out to reddit.com/r/planetside, who have been pimping the stream quite a little bit lately. Some great discussion over there. Go and subscribe to that particular subreddit if you're interested in talking about Planetside 2. And of course, the veterans over at planetside-universe.com, where if you're looking for a little bit more in-depth discussion with many veterans of the game and some wonderfully colorful arguments, then that is the place to go. Special thanks, of course, to Hammer for his continued dedication to that particular site. Thanks to you guys for watching. This entire VOD will be available over on youtube.com/TotalHalibut for anyone that missed it. My name has been Totalbiscuit. Thank you to Twitch for hosting this stream, and we will see you next time.
Bye, guys. Thanks.